we want to figure out what the Song of Songs is. It's a unique book in the canon of Scripture and has a precious place in the history of the contemplative tradition. And for the first 1800 years of church history, it was treated as an allegory. And what that means is that it was read as if it was about the divine romance and not about human sexuality. And if you thought about doing your greatest work today, you might think about doing a study on Romans or a study on the doctrine of God. Years ago, when Bernard of Clairvaux and Richard of Sibbes did their great work, what they chose was the Song of Songs. In fact, in the Western Church, if you go word by word, Song of Songs is probably the most referenced book in the whole of Scripture. This took a precious place in the life of the church. Now, the allegory interpretation had two things to it. It read the book as a divine romance, but read a lot of symbolism into the details of the story. But the other thing that it did was set a definite no to this is not about human sexuality. This is not a human romance it's talking about. And a lot of that was shaped not by the text itself. There's nothing in the text that suggests you shouldn't take it as a human romance. But sexuality in the ancient church often was associated with such shame and awkwardness that all the sexuality stuff is read out of the Song of Songs, and all that is left is the allegory of the divine romance. Now, about 200 years ago, in the 19th century, that all changed, where the allegorical interpretation was rejected, and in its place was adopted the literal interpretation, essentially saying this is a love story between a real man and real woman, and that is what the song is about. And it is not about the divine romance between God and his people. Now, some who took the literal interpretation still stayed open to even though this is about human romance, it gives a window into the divine story between God and his people. And so there's a third option for how to interpret the Song of Songs in Scripture, and that's the figurative or the typological or the theological reading, which says, yes, absolutely, the Song of Songs is about human sexuality, but because in Scripture the one flesh relationship is used as a parable or an allegory for our spirituality, so our exclusive, intimate, sexual union is used as an image of our spiritual union with Christ. The figurative reading will say we want to hold both the literal human love story, but we also want to use that literal human love story as a window in to spirituality, as a window into the contemplative tradition. Now, I love this approach, the figurative approach, because Song of Songs is clearly a celebration of human sexuality. But throughout Scripture, and the pinnacle is Ephesians 5, but throughout Scripture, sexuality is used as a window into spirituality. And there was a shift in the 19th century where once the allegorical reading was bleached out and with it was replaced just the literal reading, the Song of Songs went from being this jewel in the crown of the canon to functionally being decanonized. I don't know when the last time that you heard sermons on the Song of Songs. It's actually very rare these days. And what I want us to do is I want us to retrieve the riches that are there in that song, both as we read it as a celebration of sexuality and as we read it into a window into spirituality and the contemplative tradition. We are living in the contemporary Western world where out there sex is abused, and often still in church circles, sex is associated with shame. Actually, the Song of Songs comes along at an amazing time to be a celebration of God's design for human sexuality. But at the same time, we're living in the Western world where the secular world is searching for all sorts of spiritualities, all sorts of sanctuaries, and conservative evangelicalism has lost its link to its contemplative heritage. And so the spiritual side of Song of Songs, the divine romance side of Song of Songs, speaks into our culture as well, both to the secular culture that is looking for a sanctuary, and to our church culture that has lost its connection with its legacy. And so as we explore the contemplative tradition, I want us to embrace Song of Songs that gives us such a window into the divine romance, specifically because it is a celebration of human sexuality.